Give a huge round of applause for our guest, Shawn Riegsecker.
I think if Elvis walked in, I think you would all pass out. I don't think that would be what you would do if Elvis walked in the room.
No question. Oh, quick side note, I actually saw Elvis in concert, by the way. Anybody else? I don't think so. I literally am.
How old were you when that happened?
I was actually 9 years old, and I just dated myself. So, yeah. I saw Elvis in Dayton, Ohio. Crazy. So, first of all, I have to say a big thanks to Shawn, above and beyond. He actually has been sick in bed for the last 2 days, food poisoning. So we think it's some sort of pork gyros or something like that. But in any case,
so if I'm like sweating, I'm going from like cold sweat to like overheating. So if that happens and if I pass out, someone try to catch me in this.
Yeah, please. Might not be me.
I couldn't pass this up.
Thank you. So we also have another tradition. The way we start out here is really to ask you about your childhood and where you're from, what were you doing as a kid, and is there any moment when you were growing up that you sort of exhibited, an entrepreneurial spirit?
So my story, everybody in this audience has got their own story about life as a child, and it probably looks the same for a lot of us, but for me, I was actually adopted. And I was brought home 2 weeks, adopted by this great mom and dad, which is grew up a Mennonite family, so super religious. Wasn't allowed to watch movies or Star Wars or any type of shows with guns in or anything like that. And but the rest of life for that was kind of just where we grew up on a farm. I lived on the farm about 6 years old, and then moved into a town. I think the best thing, and I say this to my employees all the time, the cool thing about growing up on a farm was that you learned one big lesson, which is that you just work until you get the job done. There is no concept of work-life balance. You're working around the clock. When the hay's dry, you're going to cut it, you're going to clear it, you're going to bale it, and you're going to end at 4 o'clock in the morning. And that was a really great lesson for me. As far as entrepreneurism, I don't think, other than I was always making money. Just as a kid, whether it was babysitting first, or mowing lawns, to working in the factory, working in restaurants, building homes, building grain bins, all that stuff. So I was just making money hand over fist. I remember for 2 summers I'd get up and go to the factory, start at 7 in the morning, work till 3, and then at 3 o'clock I'd go and build homes until the sun went down.
Wait, how old were you?
It was when I was a freshman in sophomore year in school.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was up to this way. If I was working, I wasn't spending the money. If I was making it, Or did I say that right? If I was working, I wasn't spending it. Yeah. So that was kind of, but the other thing I think for me was just that I think there's so much of the nature nurture, right? Being adopted, I had the ability to look upon what is my DNA versus what it was. I grew up in a conservative family. I grew up with the phrase that it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. So, my parents, even to this day, although they like the fact that they don't have to support me, they have zero respect for any of the success or any of the, wealth that is created in life. My mom's big thing is all I care is that you get to heaven, and that's like the biggest thing for her. So that's kind of what childhood was like for me.
So they're not asking you for like an investment strategy or anything?
God, no, not at all.
Well, that's incredible. Where did you grow up?
Actually, I went outside of Toledo, Ohio, about 45 minutes outside of Toledo.
I'm a Buckeye too. Yeah. Anyway, so where did you go to school? Where did you go to college?
I went to a mental powerhouse called Bowling Green State University. Like any Falcons in here? No, I've got nothing. You know, and it's really funny because going to college for me, actually I went to Anderson University, which is a Christian school for 2 years. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, private school in Indiana. And then I couldn't afford it, so transferred to a state school my junior and senior year. And I always looked upon college, I never was all that interested in the classes. It just wasn't as fulfilling for me as it could have been. And so when I went to school, I went there with the idea that I want to learn how to lead people, I want to study what I'm interested in. And so by the time I got to Bowling Green, I was chairman of the Academic Affairs Committee, I was president of Delta Sigma Pi, which was the business fraternity. I was president of the advertising club. And then like a year ago, I went to apply to grad school for the University of Chicago for the Harris School of Public Policy. And I asked my assistant who's helping me do it, and I said, Katie, I just want you to know I didn't do that well in college. You know, I probably got like a 2.6 or something like that. So she gets my transcript back and she's like, yeah, you didn't get a 2.6. I was like, what did I get? She's like, you got a 2.49. And that's because I did, and that's after I transferred and didn't have to take my earlier grade. So I did not do well in school. Now what's funny is I keep going, I'm like, I think I might go on a path to be the most successful graduate of Bowling Green State University ever, which I think would be cool. But the CEO of Adobe is a Bowling Green State grad. So
you still have a chance.
I got a ways to go.
So, out of college, what was sort of your first work experience?
You know, what happened for me in school was right at the end, because I graduated in '94 from college, and that was really when the internet was really starting to take hold. And for me, I looked upon that and I thought, this is just going to change the world. In fact, there was a really, really weird situation I had. If anybody in this audience has ever read a book called The One-to-One Future, and it's called Building Relationships One Customer at a Time. And it was talking about databases, database marketing, CRMs, and the internet back in like 1992. And they really chronicled the death of mass media. And it was written by Martha Rogers and Don Peppers. So Peppers and Rogers, they were huge in the 90s and on the speaking tour. Martha Rogers was a professor at Bowling Green State. And so I got to study underneath her, which was just the wackiest turn of events for me. And so she really kind of opened up my eyes. She was also the faculty member for the ad club. So she opened my eyes to what was going to take place. And so from there, it was just about how can I maneuver my career to get there. So right out of school, I actually sold Yellow Page advertising. I'd done an internship, by the way, at the Beacon Journal, the newspaper in Akron, Ohio. Yeah, in Akron. You from Akron?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, love it.
Yeah. Glad we're reading up here in front of everybody. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
So I did an internship there in my junior, senior year. Graduated, they didn't have any positions open. I went to sold Yellow Page advertising for the first, I think I made $8,000 in my first 9 months of work. Then a position opened up. Then I got in and I was a salesperson. And the Beacon Journal happened to be one of the first 4 newspapers publishing on the internet back in 1995 and 1996. Wow. So in '96, I started running sales and marketing for them. Then I went to the Cleveland Plain Dealer and helped put Cleveland.com online. And you know what's really interesting? This is also this weird, paths crossing. So Adam Bain, who is now the Chief Revenue Officer for Twitter, I actually replaced him at Cleveland.com. And he, kind of went on to do his other things. So Cleveland is breeding some decent talent there, huh?
It's the epicenter. So from there, you actually, I think it was Real Media 24/7 that you ended up with after that. And that was, mid-90s, and now things are starting to explode. I mean, at that point in time, were you thinking about, building something on your own? Or are you still thinking about, wow, I'm just going to latch on to this huge thing, this freight train that's headed down the track? Or am I going to go off on my own direction?
For me, early on, I had always kind of said it. I'm the biggest planner on life you could possibly imagine. To the extent that to this day, I have a spreadsheet with every single year laid out with what I'm going to be doing in every single year, up to the point that I'm 75 years old. I know, it's weird. I totally get that.
When did you start? I know this story. When did you start that?
I actually think I started when I was 28 or 29, where I started specifically doing it. You know, I got into meditation. I got into what's that book that's out there? Someone help me out. You don't know, yeah, there's lots of books. That's true, there are lots of books. The Secret, called The Secret. Yeah, The Secret. Yeah. So there's that. Here's the thing. I, from a very young age, and I remember this being in high school, my dad and I were working on the car, and I said this to him, I've always wanted to live 3 lifetimes in one. That's been my own personal goal. And I knew I didn't have any money, or I didn't have any success, so therefore people weren't going to listen to me, so it was very difficult to change the world if I didn't have those things. So I, in my, mind at the time, said, well, money leads to power. How do I do this? Money leads to power. Power leads to respect. When people respect you, they want to, be like you, and when they want to be like you and they respect you, they'll listen to you. Now, I think it's a completely flawed. I think it's absolutely flawed. I don't think life should be like that, but I do think that there is truth to that statement. So my goal in life was to start my own company by the time I was 30, and I wanted to leave business at 42 and have $10 million in my bank account. That was my goal.
So I'm going to ask, how old are you?
42. I just turned 42 last week. Wait, I don't have $10 million in my bank account yet.
We'll get to that.
No clapping, don't jinx this.
So, well, let's go back to the sort of post, Akron Beacon Journal and Cleveland Plain Dealer and all of that, and this sort of this bubble that is building and building and building. And so, are you looking at it as I'm going to take advantage of this, or am I going to build my own thing? I mean, did you start thinking about that at all?
No, that was, I didn't know how I was going to start a company. That was not something that I could, it's kind of, I have a belief that when you work really, here's the thing. A lot of people say, well, that person's lucky. Does anybody know the equation for luck?
Preparation.
Yeah, preparedness plus opportunity equals luck. Now, what I think most people mistake in life is they don't spend enough time preparing. They're not practicing. I was having a conversation with my girlfriend a couple weeks ago who wanted to go have a Sunday fun day. And I'm like, listen, I've never done a Sunday fun day in my life. Like, I don't do it. It's just not like, I'm practicing, I'm preparing, I'm reading, I'm doing the things I need to do. And because opportunities only show up once or twice or 3 times in your life. And if you're not prepared when the opportunity shows up and you don't frankly have the guts to actually take a risk and get there, it's going to be really hard to actually make it in life. And so for my life, I just kept preparing and preparing. Now what happened was in 2000, I moved to Chicago in October of 2000 to work for Real Media, which became 24/7 Real Media. The recession happens, wipes out every single competitor I possibly have at the time for the idea. And at that point, I was like, all right, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know exactly how to run a business, but I knew that the ad industry was incredibly screwed up from a process and automation standpoint. There was no way to run a business or scale digital going forward. You didn't have to be a genius back in 2000 to recognize the internet was going to create more fragmentation and more complexity than we've ever seen in media before. So I quit my job. Worked in the server room of another company, and went out and just started selling, advertising, creating systems on the back end, processing as much as I could, and started building the business that way.
Were you actually building, when you say the back end, like were you building, or were you programming, or?
No, I was, although in the mid-90s, I knew enough to be dangerous. I knew how to write HTML code, but I was nowhere near a software engineer or a programmer. I understood the architecture and how the pipes and everything fit together, so I could talk intelligently about it, but I could never have developed into an engineer at the time. No, that was more for me just about creating. We actually were running things off of Excel and an Access database, and which was simple for us to do. And then I hired I raised $1.8 million in angel capital in 2005.
Wait, you said that really quickly. How much?
1.8 million
Angel capital?
in angel capital.
That's pretty extraordinary, isn't it?
I don't know, is that extraordinary?
I think so, yeah. How did that come about, or how did you get 1.8 million in angel funding?
This is a really weird story on Centro and life. So, let me just real quick start. Let me just give you a quick first few years of Centro. So from 02 to 05, I bootstrapped it. I was a first-time CEO. You know, I don't have a degree from a prestigious university. I don't have any experience, so no one is going to give me any money in order to build my company. So now you just got to go out and sell your butt off. That's the number one thing, by the way, most companies are missing, is how to actually create revenue. The good news is I actually knew how to sell, so I went out and started creating revenue. I hired a couple people. Over the first 3 years of my company, by the end of 2005, I think I only had 6 employees, maybe 7 employees. So it was a really small company. I needed money, but I also needed counseling. And I was laughing. I needed counseling in many ways, but I meant like a mentor. That's what I mean. And actually, the old boss I worked for at this other company was such an asshole. He really was. But I respected him, so I went to him and I said, "Hey, Steve, I got this guy. His name's Joe Kelly, and you know, I want him to be my mentor, but I also would like him to invest in the company." He says, "Well, what do you want? Do you want his mentorship or his money?" And I said, "Well, I want them both." He said, "Then just ask him for his mentorship." I thought that was so cool, so I called this guy Joe Kelly up, and I said, "Joe, I'd like for you to be my mentor." He's like, "Great, I'm working partner with this guy named Ken Wallace, so we'll come in and give us equity in the company, small little, it was like 2% or something like that, and we'll mentor you." I said, "That's great." A year later, they actually invested their money in the company, so I thought it was really great advice there. Now the raising of the capital, I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't even know what a PPM, private placement memorandum, was. And these guys said, "Hey, we would like to introduce you to a guy. His name is Michael Copper." And Michael, at that time, he was working for Enron and had gotten caught up in the whole whirlwind of that. And they said, "Would you be willing to sit down and meet with Michael? He could probably help us. He's not doing anything right now. He's really super intelligent and an amazing person." And they said, "Would you meet with him?" And I kind of him-hawed about it for about 3 months, and I was like, I don't know, I don't want to get involved in that. And then I ended up meeting with him, great guy, and Michael really helped me early on in the beginning of his career. So it was kind of like, look, we all make mistakes, and he was kind of a really good person caught in a really ugly situation. And there were a lot of people that were involved in that, and Michael helped me out in the early days.
That's
awesome.
money. So let's back up just a little bit. And I don't know if everybody here knows what Centro does, but talk about sort of identifying the problem and how you piece together your solution, and even maybe walk through kind of the evolution of that over the first 3-4 years until you got angel funding.
Yeah, so the thesis of process automation software is one of the huge global investment theses going on today, because there is almost no industry that you can identify where that industry cannot become more efficient, more intelligent at what they're actually doing. Same thing in advertising. So there are thousands and thousands of websites out there that you could put your advertising on. And now we've got phones, now we've got tablets, we're moving into internet distributed television. So when you look at that, the opportunity to say, I have a budget, I need to determine where to place my dollars, and I need to efficiently get them there. Without software, that's a very difficult process. So historically, everyone does it through Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, and a ton of emails is how it transacts. So we've actually created an enterprise platform where you actually go into the platform and the system does all the work for you, and you literally get to sit there and it saves you anywhere from 30 to about 70%, depending on the size, scope, and scale of the process, in getting your advertising bought, tracking it, making sure it works, and making sure it performs.
Awesome. So 2005-ish, once you got your angel funding, what was the makeup of your team?
So it was me. I had I don't remember candidly at that point.
Yeah. I mean, were we all sort of out selling, or?
No, I think it was me, and I think I had two folks other than me that were selling, and I think I had like 4 people in the back office just processing everything for us that we sold.
So walk us through kind of the first, you've gotten this investor and big chunk of money, and so what do you do at that point?
So the first thing I did with the 1.8 was hire my first set of developers. So I hired a CTO and he brought over 4 engineers. And so that was when we had taken this elaborate Access and Excel system and we started building software. I mean, that included everything from a vendor library of thousands of publishers with contact information, with rate information, with sizing information and spec information, all the way through contracts, into ad server integration. And so that was the bulk of the work that we started doing. And they built software really, really fast at the time. The rest of it is I went out and hired, I think, 3 more salespeople. And we went from, to give you guys some sense of scale, we had $5 million in gross revenue. Now in the ad industry, we work with kind of a gross net, so the net margin is somewhere in the 20 to 30% range, depending upon what the company looks like. But the gross number, we went from $5 million in revenue in 2005 to $25 million in 2006 to $70 million in 2007.
Wow.
So from 5 to 70 in 2 years.
So tell us about that. I mean, what were the growing pains, and how did you manage that?
I talk about this a lot. I still to this day do not know how any company actually starts and grows and is successful over a long period of time. I just don't understand how it ever works, because I think there are so many ways to screw it up. And in fact, to this day, I still think I'm going to screw this thing up. I always, to me, being a founder entrepreneur means that you always sleep with the fear that you're one strategic decision away from completely going out of business, which probably keeps you sharp, keeps you working hard, and keeps you moving. So, what was the question?
Well, just that sort of proverbial hockey stick growth you had over your first 2 years, even, wasn't it? You mentioned 5 to 25 to...
from 05 to 07, it wasn't that hard. Life is good when revenue is growing at the rate that it is. It's in 2008 and 2009 when the recession hits, and now you've got some real problems on your hands. And so the growing pains wasn't so much in those first couple of years. Everything was hunky-dory, we're having a great time, we're partying our butts off. Now we move to 08, the recession hits, and now I've got to make some hard decisions. So a couple of things happened. One, I had to get rid of about half the executive team. We just, at some point, we were on 2 different pages. And I could tell that, we have a phrase called speed comes from alignment, and I knew we weren't aligned on our goals, on our values, on what we needed to do. And so I let, I think, 3 of the executive team go in early 2008. Then 2008 comes, we lose money. So 2008 was the first year that we lost money. I lost about $2.3 million in 2008. I had a credit line of $2 million. And in early 2009, the bank calls and they say, we're not renewing your line of credit. So I don't have $2 million to give the bank. So we are now technically bankrupt. We're technically insolvent. The bank, if they want to, can put Centro in receivership, and it goes to the courts on and liquidating whatever we have to liquidate. So this is a terminal moment in getting Centro to where it's at today. The good thing is I was with a certain bank, I won't name it, but I knew the president of the bank. It was a local bank. I called him up and I said, listen, you can't just let me know 5 or 10 days before the contract's up, you're going to take away my loan. Give me 2 months. He did that. I then went into what they call a factoring receivables. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, but they take kind of control of your receivables. And we had to pay $50,000 a month just to have the line, a $2 million line available to us. We never actually used it, but that we had it there for us. We controlled our AP and AR really well. So that was really scary times, you know, getting the company to where it was. And, you know, you're just staring at things going, everything I've dreamed about is going down the toilet.
I mean, that's a huge gut check, I gotta believe at that point. I mean, what's going through your mind? I mean, you're thinking about cashing in your chips and just, I'm done, or you're all in no matter what?
Man, there are so many things that go through your mind as that years are going. I think most of it though, you get tunnel vision when you're in the heat of the moment. You know, you get tunnel vision on, I just gotta survive. And we just gotta make it through this. I also, to this day, I'm the only CEO that I know whose board of directors all resigned on the same day. And you know, my story on it, I was going to say it's my story, they're not here to tell their side of the story, so I give you my side of it. You know, they just, you know, they had every reason, because, you know, the one thing that a board has is let a hire and fire the CEO. And they've been with me now for 2 board meetings, and they were all independent, they weren't investors. And, you know, they had sent me Sequoia, I think did such a terrible disservice to the market. Sequoia Capital sent around this PowerPoint to all of their portfolio companies, and it got, quote, leaked out to the rest of the industry, and it was a tombstone that had RIP on it. And it said, fire deep, fire now, and get rid of as many people as you can if you think you're going to survive this recession. And so my board sent it to me, and they said, Shawn, let us know who you're going to cut. And I put a budget together and said, I think we're going to be up 7% in 2009. And they were like, but I put an expense budget together where we would make money even if we were flat revenue. So I don't think they believed that I could hold the expense budget, but I also think that they thought I was crazy that we were going to be up in 2009. Actually, I said we were going to be up 8%. We ended up being up 7.75%. We made $3 million in profit. It was the most profit we'd ever made in any year up to that point. It erased all of our problems we had before, and we didn't fire anyone. Now the executives took pay cuts. All the executives, you know, took pay cuts in order to keep everyone there. So we started with ourselves first, and that helped get us through. And I think that was a really strong slingshot of us coming out of the recession, because we went from $78 million in revenue in 2009 to $114 million in 2010. So other companies are trying to scrape back, you know, get themselves up and running again. We were still fully staffed, and we ended up being up 7.75% that year, so it was a great year.
I mean, that's incredible. So you guys are known for one of the best places to work, if not the best place to work in Chicago. And I don't know if everybody knows that, but they've been selected the best company to work for in Chicago 4 years in a row, which is unbelievable. At that moment, when you kept everybody, didn't fire anybody, and the executives took a pay cut, did that make a statement, I mean, to everybody and sort of start building this kind of culture, or did that culture exist before then?
The culture existed way before that. Before I started the company, here's what I sat down and I wrote a document called the Corporate Manifesto. You know, my experience about working in a company was that every day I started, I wanted to do great, I wanted to be great, I wanted to take pride in what I do. And 6 months in, that company ground all my idealism out of me. I was looking at the senior executives going, why are you guys such assholes? You know, why can't you treat your employees better? You know, we want to do great work for you. And I said, well, if that's been my experience, I don't want that to be my company. So I said, well, what if we were to do something different? What would a different company look like? And I believe we're in the dawning of an age of people better understanding human psychology and actually treating people a lot better. And so I just went out and meditated for a long time, and I wrote this document. And, you know, with the basic tenets of it was this: I couldn't include religion or spirituality in the workplace. So outside of that, what could I focus on? And I was like, well, self-fulfillment, happiness, you know, it could be the thing that I want to have a company about. So I believe that the times in my life I feel the best is when I'm growing and learning, and also when I'm actually giving back and helping another human being or helping another individual. And so the tenets of Centro are that lasting success of a company can only be achieved through the dedication, the growth, and the well-being of the individual. And the second is that each person is responsible for his or her own success, the success of those around them, and the success of the company as a whole. So that's what we start with, and everything we do tracks back to that. Now, there's a whole set of values that we have behind that. I say this a lot because too many companies try to say, well, what are our values? And let's go sit around and come up with them. And I'm like, look, show me the value of your private equity investors, show me the value of the CEO, show me the values of the board or the executive team, and I'll guarantee you, I can tell you what the values are for the whole organization, because everyone will reflect that. So it's a worthless exercise to sit around and go, what should our values be? Just figure out what your values are and just put it on the board and say, those are our values. You can't bullshit your way through this. Because a value only becomes a real value when it costs you money. Okay? And those are the times that it gets around. You know, for us as a company, it was a value for us was to make sure that we kept the team together. And it cost us money in order to do that. But people were willing to make that sacrifice to step up. Other things have happened a lot like that.
That's amazing. So you've gotten to the point of light at the end of the tunnel, or as you describe it, sort of catapulting forward. So what do you do at that point? I mean, one thing I wanted to ask you though, along the way, you mentioned mentorship early on. What kind of mentorship did you have at 2008, 2009, and how did you lean on them?
That's actually funny. First, I get this when I sit with high school kids a lot, and they always ask me what my mentors are. And I say, I don't have any mentors. I didn't have any mentors growing up. I had great role models like my father and my grandfather from an integrity and a character perspective, but I knew no one successful. I knew no one wealthy. I didn't know anything like that. But I read biographies. You know, I think every awesome person has written a biography or had a biography written about them, and you can learn as much as you could by knowing someone who's really successful in life. So I highly recommend kids do that. Now, going through this is a really funny story. I was having lunch with Brad Keywell from Groupon Lightbank, and it's at the same lunch, and him and I are having lunch in early 2009, and he says to me, Shawn, what's your scaffolding in life? And I go, I don't know, what does that even mean? He goes, like, who do you go to? Like, you're going through these hard times, who's helping you? Or who you, and I said, I have no idea, I don't really have anybody. And he goes, you really need to get into YPO. And I said, well, what's YPO? He's like, it's Young Presidents Organization. I'm happy to sponsor you. And I'm like, that's really cool. And that was like probably the most amazing decision and gift I've received in probably the last 10 years was getting into YPO. So I've got that going for me now that I didn't have then. But I also got to share this because it's the same lunch we were having, and he's like, so I'm invested in this company called The Point. And it's not really going anywhere. And the CEO wants to create a thing. He's calling it a group coupon. He wants to call it a Groupon. What do you think about that idea? And I'm like, I don't know. That's good. Coupon's kind of a weird and dirty space. But hey, why not give it a shot? I guess I was wrong.
Very cool. So along the way, who do you think was your most critical hire? And why?
It sounds really weird. I almost wanted what rings true for me is my assistant. I held off from having an assistant forever because I wanted to show everyone that I was humble and I was, I wasn't above anyone else, and I would clean the toilets, metaphorically. Was that funny? Because I would do it. But anyways, Katie, and that was like the big mistake I made. My company needed me to be efficient. They needed me to be very productive. They didn't need me to sit around and try to show humility in every single thing I did. And she was my first assistant. She's been with me now for 7 years, and she's just an amazing partner to my life.
Very cool. So where is Centro today? And what's Centro tomorrow?
So today, kind of crossed a milestone. I think we crossed 500 employees a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So that's a big number for us. We have, for those in building tech companies, we kind of made a mistake that a lot of companies make, which is, with the move to Rails, to open source, to agile, what happens in that situation is you can build some great software really fast and you can get things moving quickly. But if you do not spend enough time architecting your platform up front, you end up with a massive ball of code where you end up coding yourself to a dead end. And you can't really, pull things out, put things in, replace them. And so, that was one of the big mistakes that we made. We got a great platform up and running. And so 2 years ago, we decided that we wanted to enhance the platform in a much bigger way. The team came and we had a heart-to-heart conversation. And they said, we could try to take the current platform and move it into the market with the added features. But we would prefer to stop development on it and completely start over and spend a lot of more time in the architecture up front. And they said, well, it's going to take us a couple years to replace what it took us 5 years to build in the beginning. So that's been what we've been working on. And then we made an acquisition in Toronto from a real-time bidding company. We're integrating their technology. So we have a new release that's coming out at the end of this year, which is critically important. I'm assuming it's going to go well. If it does go well, our mission for the company is that until a super majority of the global advertising industry is using our software to automate all of their media operations, that we haven't achieved what we're doing. So that's a big vision for us and something that's going to take a lot of work to move into, but that's what we're working on.
Is your footprint solely in the US now, or?
US and Canada.
Got it. And so part of that trajectory is expanding into the EU and so on.
Yeah, we look at international is on the board pretty much every year for the last 4 years of when are we going to go international. And we keep hitting right on a 40% growth rate in the US. And it's we don't want to be distracted, we want to stay focused, and so for us, I would assume within the next year or 2 years we're going to make an international push. I think our belief is that we're going to let the product draw us internationally versus attempting to export our managed service business internationally.
Has there been any sort of notable change up in kind of the network you guys have built? And you've got sort of the BuzzFeeds of the world out there and so on. I mean, has the local news website, does it still exist, or has the landscape changed since you started Centro?
Yeah, the publishing side of the industry has completely changed from what it was. Before it was the common brands that we all knew, the newspapers, the TV, the magazines. But now you've got completely brand new publishers that nobody's ever heard of, along with all the social sites. And so audiences just keep getting more and more fragmented across more and more different companies with different brands. And that creates a level of complexity. Complexity works for us because it's great for our company. The less complex it is, the less people need to pay us and pay us our software. So it's a good thing that continues to happen.
Awesome, very cool. Well, why don't we open it up for questions?
Yeah, so we had a recruiter that was working for us back in 2007, and I think I hired Katie in 2007 or 2008. And it's really funny because there's two things. When I actually interviewed her, she looked so conservative. And I don't lead a very conservative life, but she was perfect. She's so, by the way, she's so smart. She's ridiculously intelligent. And so I said, well, meet me for like brunch on a Saturday or something like that. Like kind of hoping she'd come with her hair down and kind of see, if she could I'm like, hey, listen, I just want you to know this is what happens. Are you comfortable with this? And then I come to find out that she's just as crazy as I am on most things in the world, so it was a total front on her end. But I will say this, though, about working with an assistant. You have to view it as a partnership, okay? And the more you can view the partnership, and I'm not kidding, she has access to almost every single thing in my life. And creating that type of trust, that type of relationship, she's got access to my inbox, has been super helpful. in ways I can't even imagine. For most of our businesses, we sell to ad agencies who are obviously working on behalf of the clients, and they're highly distributed across the country. It was all outside sales for us. It's a very high, the managed side of our business, not the software self-serve. The managed side is high touch and relationship building, and so to this day we have probably about 110 sellers, outside field sellers, folks on the street. Yep. But it's just, by the way, it's you can track your sales, you can forecast it. I know exactly if I hire this many salespeople, it's going to turn into this much revenue, and I know how long it takes to make them profitable. It's a pretty standard, system we have now. Yeah, it's a great question, and it's also really difficult to do so. And it's true that the bigger you get, the harder it is. It means you just have to spend more time working at it than you ever did before. So here's what we do as an organization. And by the way, we call it line of sight. Every single person, no matter what position they have in the company, they need to have a line of sight into what they're doing and how it affects the actual goal in which the company's doing it. So we draw charts that actually people can understand how they're connected to what we're actually doing. And then what we do is at the end of every year, I go around to all the different regions. We do a presentation on how the year went, but also what our plan is for the next year. So I'll be going around doing 2015, so everyone understands what that looks like. On a quarterly basis, we actually will do mini versions of that. We also share the financials. And then as an executive team, the one thing that I see happen quite a bit, and we root this out as best we can, is that once people stop being honest and politics creeps into your organization, you're screwed from alignment perspective. And so we spend a lot of time as an exec team. We go once a year to an offsite, and then we meet on a quarterly basis. We have a psychologist come in and work with us. And we get so naked, real, and honest with each other. And I'll give you one specific example. I'll sit in the middle, I'll sit in the chair, everyone will be in a circle around me, and everyone has to go through and say, Shawn, my most powerful negative feedback about you is, and everyone tells me the most powerful negative thing they can think about me is. And I get to do it, and then we do it to everyone else. And it's just great, because then once you are able to say the worst thing you can think about someone to their face in front of other people, then if you disagree with something I'm doing in the company, it's really not that hard of a thing to actually say. Yeah, so I'll kind of repeat that first. She was kind of asking about, preparation plus opportunity was luck, but then there also is such a thing as luck. Totally, and I totally believe in that too. In fact, I say this all the time. Right now I'm experiencing this. I have screwed things up so much at Centro that the fact that it's 2014 and I still have the opportunity to be the #1 automation platform in this industry is ridiculous to me. I don't even get it at all. So to me, that's huge luck that I'm experiencing to this day. Because there's always going to be a sense of luck. I actually attribute it, though, a lot to me, there's a lot that goes into meditation, being in line with the universe, putting things out there. And somehow I think the universe conspires with you if you're living the proper life in relationship to that. That is it's always one of the hardest things to talk about. That question. I'm now 12 years into the company, and I'm pretty much on, I think it's now my 3rd overhaul of the executive team. I'm on my 3rd executive team. Now, there are some people who have managed to grow with the business, but the majority have not. So, if you're an entrepreneur that's going to experience any level of great success, you have to get comfortable right now knowing that you're going to have to let go of executives that are currently working for you. Because the people who I could attract at a certain place in my life, when I was 10 people and I wanted to hire an executive, okay, is not the caliber of the person that is going to get me to be able to manage 500 people, you know, versus 5 people. And that's a huge mistake that entrepreneurs can't seem to make. At some point, you've got to just make a gut-wrenching decision to let go of someone who is your friend, who you love, who has helped you get to where you are to this point, and you know, could be valuable. So to me, it's now the one thing I've learned, this is something I didn't have, to the extent you can, and the problem is money, candidly. Hire for where you want to be, not for where you are currently. Get the best executive you possibly can find and pay up for it to the extent you can, because it's going to help you in the long term. But for me, I've had to make a lot of hard decisions with people that I love dearly. And you know, candidly, I'll tell you what, they've all been, for the most part, great about it. I think most of the time they know that they're not the right executive to take us to the next level. And all of them have been incredibly professional, incredibly supportive of the decision. And then I also just want to say this, because I have a phrase a lot that says, hire slow but fire fast. Okay, hire really slow, because who you hire is really important. But if you make a mistake, get rid of them. And that's not to say they're a bad person, they just mean a bad person for your company. It may not fit with your values or your culture. But when you fire them, take really good care of them on the way out. You know, and that means, you know, 2 months. I mean, I remember I had hired someone, and she worked for me for 2 days, and I gave her 2 months severance. And the reasoning is because the same people who worked for you that you're letting go are going to end up working for a client, for a competitor, for a vendor. They're going to come back, so you might as well just take really good care. It's a really small way to think about creating goodwill in the market, and so just make sure you don't try to screw people over even if they weren't the right fit for your company. The first thing is this, which is Peter Lynch wrote a book called One Up on Wall Street many years ago from an investing strategy. His whole idea was that you should invest in what you know. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, every single thing you're doing is just leading you to a certain point of an ability to jump and take a risk. All right, so it's all about whatever you're doing at this moment. Start looking at how could what I'm doing, this industry I'm in, could be better than what it is today. And once you come up with that idea, you're going to have contacts, you're going to have built-in things, and then once you get the idea, then it's just going to be a matter of just making a decision to take all the risk in your life in order to make that jump, and just know what your life's going to be like, you know, for the next, you know, when I quit my job, I had enough money for about 2 months to live off. I ended up, you know, at, 6 months in, I was 2 months behind on rent. I had over $50,000 in unsecured, credit at 28% interest. Okay, so I mean, but that's just what I had to do. There was no way for me to live at that point. God, there's so many funny stories about that in the early days. There really are. Actually, Kelly Davis, who was my first employee, she worked for me at Real Media, and she kind of been burned with the startup path. And so when I said, Kelly, and then she went to work for a big company, and she hated that too. I was like, just come work for me. Help me out. And I said, listen, work for me for 6 months. And after 6 months, I'll give you, I've got contacts, I'll help you find a job somewhere else. She stayed for 7 years, so that worked out really well. But I knew her. Emily, the next person that I hired, this is funny, because we were literally now in a 300 square foot office and the second floor overlooking trash cans in the back of the building. And we had 3 IKEA desks right beside each other. There's no way anyone would have been my second employee, right, if you don't count me. So I went to the leasing office and I asked them if we could interview people in their nice conference room. So our first interview was there, second interview was out for lunch, and then the third interview when we offered her the job was to say, hey, listen, we just want you to know that's not our office. And so Emily, by the way, is still with us today. She was our second our employee. Katie Rich was our third employee. She's still with us today. She's our senior VP of Public Relations. So a lot of my early folks have stayed with us in some way, shape, or form. But here's a really funny story. Idealism is one of our core 4 principles for the company. And what idealism means to me is that you have to get people on your team who believe that you can be great in something. So I was sitting around, in this 300 square foot office, then we moved to a 700 square foot office with no money, and just me and some other people. And I'm going, guys, we're going to build software, and we're going to change the industry, and we're going to revolutionize what's going on, and this is going to be great, and we're going to teach companies how to be better at treating their employees. And they're looking at me going, this dude is crazy. I mean, I know they are. So I'm like, how do I get them to believe in this? So I created a thing. It was round robin every week on our operations meeting on Monday mornings. And each person would have to go research any brand that they love, any company. They had to talk, and they had to do a presentation on how that company started. So we did everything from Levi's to McDonald's to Starbucks to Nordstrom, everything about that. And every single company started with one person or two people sitting around a table with an idea. No company started any way but that. And look what they had become. So all of a sudden I started to get them to believe that this little team of 3 to 5 people could start to be great. And it would just require a lot of hard work and a lot of effort. So to me, it was about getting the people to believe in you and the vision, but then also helping them understand how they can achieve it. You know, it's really funny because I kind of go up and down in it. So, you know, for years I would meditate 4 to 5 times a week. When times are really stressful, I'll meditate every single day. You know, I tend to do it at night. It's just easier for me. I like to do it before I go to sleep. I also pray every morning. I pray every night. So those are my personal things I do. The answer is no. Being number one in the Crane's Best Places to Work was never a goal that was ever set for our company. And in fact, I am toying with not actually applying for it this next year, because I think people are getting focused on the award and they're losing what the real purpose of what we're doing is, and I don't like that. It's really interesting. I'll just share that and why that resonates well with me. When I was in high school, I was in choir, and we literally one of the best choir programs in the area. And they all wanted us to go to competition, and my choir instructor would never take our choir to competition. And we had a show choir that we would like tour like 3 states, and he'd say, look, music is so beautiful, you know, and the world is so competitive. Why do we need to turn music, which is so gorgeous, into competition? And that's always stuck with me, and I don't want this thing that we're doing to turn into a competition. So I don't know what, but if we don't do it, then I'm like, well, people think we have a shitty culture now. So I'm kind of caught in a rock and a hard place on this one. Because you can only go down, right? I mean, I don't know. For me, this was all about reading and preparing and getting coaching at, you know, that later on in my life. You know, I've read more books on leadership, and you know, my best friends joke like, you spend more time in the self-help section of the library and the bookstore than anyone we've ever heard of. And it's true. So I think that's what I've always done. And now I'm also in YPO. I've got a lot of folks. Now I've actually got psychologists that I work with every single month. And so I'm getting a lot of coaching through that. And the other thing is, you just try things, you fail, and you learn from it. And the one thing is, I always say this though, is, look, when in November 2011, I had to let go of 3 executives in order to replace them. And I let them go that morning, and then I addressed the entire company that afternoon. And I started out my talk, and I said, look, as the CEO of this company, the #1 responsibility I have is to put forth the best senior executive team that I possibly can. And the moment that I don't do that is the moment that the board will replace me as the CEO of the company. And so that's the kind of the burden you have as the CEO and founder, to make sure that you continue. It's why most founders don't continue to scale with their companies, because they kind of hold on to folks. They can't make hard decisions on those things.
Have you ever thought about, at any point in time, hiring a different CEO? I think of Google, you know, classically.
I mean, yeah, yes and no. I fantasize about being able to take a year off and someone else run a company. You know, I guess not so much. I mean, look, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be in the CEO position, and I'm going to run this thing to the best of my ability. I can't imagine that that's not going to happen for a while. Fear and insecurity keep me motivated more than anything else. That's a totally true and authentic statement. It's all, you know, I had my goal, right? My goal was to have $10 million in the bank when I was 42. I'm 42. I've got a great company on paper. In theory, you say that I've got quite a bit of value, but I still think I could screw it all up. And so the fear of having worked so hard and not having achieved that goal, because I want to go into education, by the way. Just, you know, my next life is education, and my third life is going to be politics. That's my own personal path. So, and then the insecurity is just never thinking that I'm good enough, and always wanting to prove to the world and prove to others that I am of value. That's much more of a psychological thing, but those are the things that keep me moving. So, you know, first, the good news is we live our values, they're there, it's the rock which we crash ourselves against, so everybody sees that. Things come up all the time, and people are always, by the way, everyone's cynical. Everyone's, you know, thinking that it's BS. I hear this all the time. I'm here at Centro, and, you know, I'm just waiting for the man behind the curtain to show up and tell me this is all a farce. You know, and 6 months in, they're like, actually, I'm starting to drink the Kool-Aid. Like a year later, they're going, wow, this is pretty cool, type of thing. So I think it gets around. Now, as far as, you know, what we do, there's a ton. It's a layered effort of what we have to talk about happiness and talk about growth, to make sure that they're all very well taken care of, to make sure they understand that. And then even this year, something I created, which was, it's called Conscious Leadership. And the idea is bringing consciousness into management and leadership. And so now I'm actually meeting, we've got about 130 managers across the company. And so I meet with them in pockets for 4 hours. And we talk, we get really real with each other and talk about what it means to become a better human being, and which in turn will make you a better leader. But there's a lot of stuff we continue to do.
Is there a bit of a snowball effect? I mean, it's sort of, you know, happy people or productive people, happy company, very productive, invites happy people that are productive. How much does that play into your corporate culture?
It's huge. You know, now the problem that we have is this. So first, birds of a feather flock together, right? So 60% of all of our, 60 to 65% of all of our new employees come from referrals from current employees. And we pay all of our employees, I think, $3,000 after taxes if someone you refer gets hired. So that's a big motivating factor for them. Second to that, now the problem with that, though, is diversity. Because, you know, it's, people attract people that look like them. And so we don't have as much diversity as what we should have. And so we've really been focused on improving that. The third, here's the bad side to being the #1 place to work and having the culture that we do, is I think that sometimes you can come in and say, I'm going to take from the culture, but I'm not going to give it. You know, the two things we have is that, you know, we're going to take care of you, but you have to take care of us. And so I think it's starting to manifest itself in ways that were never intended. And so that's a scary part for me right now, and making sure that this isn't some, you know, soup kitchen for people who hated their job before and they're going to come work with us now, you know, because we take really good care of them. You know, that's just not it. I had to have a conversation on the all hands call with all the employees 2 months ago, and my message to them was, look, if you thought that you were going to come to Centro and work less than you were working at the previous company, then I apologize for the misunderstanding. You know, we are still a startup company. We still have big goals to hit, and I need everybody here working your butt off until we get the job done.
Cool. Why don't we end it there and give Shawn a huge round of applause.